Hi everyone, so I've sat on the floor today because I'm going to be working on the lowest shelf of the nano rack, and I'm going to be working on this new tank here. So this is the tank. You may have seen it in my video that I went shopping with Fish Shop Matt, and he gave me this tank to work on because he didn't need it anymore, and it's exactly what I was looking for. So I wanted a tank that was 45 centimeters front to back and quite narrow, so I could get several tanks in a line along on this bottom shelf to do some breeding projects, little scapes, little blackwater tanks, and just give myself a bit more space and room to play with. So this is the absolute perfect tank for what I needed. It also comes with glass lids, which I've moved out of the way so I don't break them at the moment. So it's going to be perfect for keeping fish that might want to jump out or need a humid layer at the top, like betters and gouramis. So that's the plan. This tank is the Aqua One OptiClear low profile 45 centimeter. Bit of a mouthful there. But yeah, it's a 45 centimeter low profile tank. It's 24 centimeters tall and 24 centimeters front to back as well, I think. So the way I've orientated it, it's slightly different to how most people would use it. I think most people will probably have it 45 centimeters wide. I'm going for 45 centimeters front to back to give myself a bit of a different challenge, really, and also make the most use of the space that I've got. These retail for about £50 each, I believe. So if you're looking for something similar, a reasonably priced Opti-White tank which has lids, then it's perfect. I've painted the back wall black, as you can see. Obviously, you don't have to do that. It's an OptiClear tank, so you might want to keep it nice and crystal clear. So I think we should just really get started and get scaping this tank. It's going to be wood, botanicals, a few plants, and it's going to be for licorice gouramis that are in the tank right sat behind me. I'm going to move them across to free up some space so I can get more of these tanks rather than the 50 centimeter that's behind me, because that won't fit front to back and it takes up a lot more room on the shelf that I don't want to use. So yeah, let's get scaping, see how it turns out, and move the fish over and keep it a nice short and sweet video. So the first thing to do, because I'm going to have some plants in there, is I'm going to use this as my substrate base, put loads of sand. This will just give the plants a bit of food to use up and a bit of a better growing medium than plain sand. I'm going to use some Cryptocoryne, so this is absolutely essential for that. I always like to rinse my sands off before I use them. I hate the cloudy look from that, and I don't like to use too much in the way of fine filter media to take those fine particles out. So I'm going to give it a rinse off first. I'm going to mix up some sands in this bucket to do so. This is a nice sort of almost silvery sand. It's very different to what I'd normally use. Let's chuck some of that in there. You can see how much dust pluming out of that. That's why I wash sand. I've also got some more of a river gravel, which is going to go in as well. Just a little bit of that. Add some texture. And some of that. I've got a more yellowy sand as well, so I'm just going to add a handful of. And that is going to be my substrate mix. So that's all my mixed up substrate. I'm just going to get my hose and I'm going to give it a rinse. And I'm sure you all have seen someone wash sand before, so I won't take too long doing this, and I'll skip over this. So I'm just going to fill up with tap water, get rid of all that dust, and I'll do this a couple of times. And that is why I always rinse my substrate. Look how gross that water is, and that'll be my tank after I've done all that time aquascaping it, and it will just cloud up like that. So no point in doing that. Make sure you give it a rinse. So now I've got some clean sand, it's time to add it in. You can see it's got quite a fine texture, and adding in that little bit of gravel just gives it a little bit of interest. Nothing major. I wanted these sorts of habitats are always sort of sand dominated rather than gravel, so I don't want loads of it. Just a little bit, just to add some texture, is perfect.
So I'm just chucking sand on top of that plant substrate because I will then flatten it out using this NT Labs substrate sculptor. I'm not going to be doing a perfectly beautiful aquascape here, so I don't need it to be perfectly level and sort of sculpted front to back to give a sense of depth. I mean, this tank is already quite deep, so I'm just flattening it out, making sure all of the sort of plant substrate underneath is locked in and not going to be exposed to the water. So yeah, that's the main reason I'm doing this, rather than it to be aesthetically pleasing.
That's the sand in. And hopefully, because it's quite a grey colour sand, it should add a nice little bit of contrast to the brown dominated scape with all the botanicals and the wood, rather than it being sort of yellowy brown all the way through. That's the plan anyway. Now it's time to get the main block of the wood in, boil some botanicals, add them in, and then go and get some plants.
I can't remember the name of this wood. I purchased it when I built the fish room 2 and a bit years ago, but I took it out from a scape that I sort of decommissioned. And now the classic super glue and cotton wool technique of gluing hardscape together. In this very small tank, it's going to be really easy for me to knock the wood and disturb it and move it around, so I just wanted to have one large piece so it shouldn't move quite so much. To get these 2 pieces of wood to actually fit in this narrow tank, I had to snap some of the branches off, and now just gluing some of them back in to make it a slightly more detailed hardscape. So just super gluing the ends onto the main sort of root area to make it a little bit more attractive to look at. So that's the view from the top. That's the view from the bottom. I can add botanicals in the little gaps between the twigs. And I'm thinking a decent sized Cryptocoryne in here, Java fern around the back, some Buce and Anabantoid maybe around the front, some smaller crypts maybe dotted around, and then just loads and loads of leaf litter and all other stuff. Yeah. So the sound quality got even worse at this point, so I've muted this part of the video, but basically I was just saying how I was quite pleased with the overall aesthetic of the tank.
All the plants for this tank are going to be coming from my other aquariums, other scapes, where they've grown in quite well and mature specimens that I can split up a little bit, take trimmings of, and replant into this tank. I'm trying to keep the costs down as much as I can. So I'm just going to go and do some tank maintenance on some of my other tanks. I'm not going to film that because you'd have seen me do maintenance on those tanks before. I'm going to come back with some cuttings and trimmings and we'll get started on planting. Just done a bit of tank maintenance. I've got a load of plants here, Java ferns, crypts, Buce, no Anubias. I don't think I'm going to use any. I'm going to try and keep it sort of Southeast Asian. Got botanicals here, ready and prepped to go as well. So I've boiled those. I'll overlay some footage of that. Again, if you want to know how to prepare your botanicals, I have a video of that on my channel. Link will be in the description. I'm not going to cover it here because I don't want to repeat myself too much. And I want to get started and get scaping, really. So what I'm going to do is going to put big seed pods in first, and then a plant around it, and then the small leaves and stuff around to sort of blend it all in. That's the plan.
I'm going to add in some botanicals here. I'm going to make sure some of them are sort of like cave-like botanicals. So check out my video on the top 5 botanicals for caves for your spawning fish that I recently uploaded. These botanicals all came from Live Aquatic Food online, so check them out if you're interested in any for yourself.
That's the botanicals in. I've got, these are land lotus. This is a half a palm cup, half a palm pod, can't remember, palm pod I think it is, half a palm pod. And then I've got some little small savvy pods at the back there, one there and this one right at the back as well. I'm going to add in maybe some alder cones, definitely some oak leaves once I've done the planting. Plant-wise, this is what I've got so far. So you've got some Buce down here,
I think that was Caterina, is it? Wavy green, and there's some kedegang here as well. I've got some tropica, wendtii, some willisii there as well. I've got a couple bits of albida brown somewhere, and then loads of Java fern, and that's the narrow leaf.
The sort of habitats that these licorice gouramis live in don't typically actually have submersed growth in terms of plants, so I am going to keep this quite sparse. I want it to be a botanical dominated scape, not a plant dominated scape. So I'm just super gluing some epiphytes on, starting with the Buce, because once I put the Java fern in, I'm not going to have much room. I am absolutely unable to glue plants without getting it all over my hands. You should probably wear gloves.
But here's the final planting. I think a few more crypts would have been nice, but it's looking good. And now it's time to fill it up. First thing I'm going to do, water conditioner, add a bit of that in, just so it mixes in as I put it in. I'm going to do a very gentle fill with tap at first, and then I'm going to add some water from one of the mature tanks. The water is pretty clear, slight hazy seeing, I think it's from the cold water causing condensation, rather than the actual water being cloudy.
So I'm now adding in some mature water from the other tanks. I'm hoping not only will this help start the tank off and get it mature, it'll ideally stop some of the plants from melting because it's not going to be a brand new layout. We'll see if that works or not. But as you can see, there's a slight tint coming from it already. I'm breaking up some of the oak leaves that I'm adding in to give it a slightly instant mature look to the tank. Perfectly shaped leaves do look a little bit too new and too clean for a nice mature botanical scape. So yeah, just trying to get a bit more of an instant aesthetic.
So now I'm going to install heater, and then I'll get the sponge filter in as well. So first of all, get the heater in position. I'll set it while I can see it. And finally, got a sponge filter. I've had the sponges in the sump for months, so this will all be established. It was going to be for quarantine, but it'll be for this for now. I'd like to replace it with a single one because double is just going to be a bit too big, so I'd like to change that out at some point. But I'm going to install this and then we're done. So I didn't film the installation of the air powered pump filter because I thought you'd all know that. But yeah, it's all installed in the back there and you can't really see it hopefully. Just going to wait for the tank to clear up a bit and then I'll do some final shots of the video for you, and yeah, that's the tank.
A day later, instead of really clearing up, it more tinted up and has become even darker due to the oak leaves probably. But yeah, it's a really nice colour. Due to it being so darker than the current tank the fish are in, I am going to do a quick water change.
I'm back, I'm sat on the floor again, and the tank has cleared nicely and matured and settled in really well. It hasn't hit the ugly stage yet, and yeah, the biofilms haven't really started to bloom just just yet. But the tank's cleared up, the water's nice and crystal clear now, and you can really see the scape developing. The plants look a little unnatural yet because I've just glued a lot of the epiphytes on, and they need time to grow in, hide some of that super glue, and just start to look a bit more mature, really. But otherwise, I'm really happy with how it's looking. I think the licorice gourami are going to absolutely love it compared to what they currently have. What they currently have is very much a thrown together mishmash of stuff. And it's also actually got quite a lot of hydra in, which isn't going to be good for any fry that I did end up getting. They're probably going to sting them and potentially cause them to die. So I've not transferred anything other. I haven't transferred anything over yet, but I'm not going to transfer anything other than the fish into the new scape. Then I'm going to leave the empty tank as a quarantine, where I'm not going to be trying to breed any fish in there, because I don't want to have the hydra being a problem. Eventually it will be replaced by several tanks with bettas and licorice gouramis, which I think I mentioned in the initial part of this build video. But yeah, I think today now it's time to move the fish across. The tank seems to be mature and healthy. Obviously the filter media was all mature from a similar setup tank, so it should be full of life and help seed the tank. So we'll move the fish across and let them settle in, and that'll be it for now. And if and when I see any babies, I will do another video about it then. Otherwise, well, there'll be another tank here that I'll be scaping, and I'll probably talk about this tank as and when I do that one. So yeah, let's catch the fish, move them across, and let them settle in. That's the tank complete. I will let them settle in for a few days and try and take some footage of them in their new home. At the moment, they've gone straight in amongst the leaf litter and the plants, not to be seen, and I imagine they'll be like that for at least a day. But as soon as I can get some footage, I'll add that into the end of this video so you can all see them in their new home. Hopefully they'll much prefer it, and maybe one day I'll get some babies again. I did get fry when they were in the other tank, but they never got past the wriggling stage, never became free swimming. So yeah, that's my goal, and I've got a nice looking tank to go with it. So very pleased with how it's turned out. I hope you enjoy the video. I'm not sure how well this will come out, because working at this height and trying to film at the same time is really low to the ground. My tripod's too tall for it, so I've had to do some dodgy balancing acts of my phone on buckets and stuff, and it's probably not the best. So yeah, just saying this now so when I come to edit it, I don't get completely frustrated and have to then, I don't know, maybe not even post it. But if I acknowledge it and tell you it's not the best, then hopefully you'll all understand and give me a bit of slack. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon. The next tank I'll be doing is a 90 by 30 by 30, which I've been waiting to do for a long time. So yeah, more plants, more botanicals, more to come. Speak to you soon.
I just want to say a big thank you to Fish Shop Matt for giving me this tank and enabling this project. It's really kind of him, and hopefully we're going to collaborate a bit more in the future.